All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome here in AES New York Section Facebook page. I want to introduce myself. I'm Roy Shamir. I'm a mix and recording engineer. And I want to welcome everyone and thank everyone for watching our panel today and also on demand in the future. The AES New York Section has put together another great online panel discussion. Today's topic is all about the Newport Jazz and Folk Festival's revival radio shows. They were broadcast earlier this year in August. Let me just remind you guys, please keep an eye out for announcements. We're going to have some more events coming up later this month and during the AES October Convention Month, some New York-based, New York section-based events. Keep an eye on our page. We'll keep you posted. We've got two great guests coming up for you today. Very excited about that. So much I can almost hardly speak. So two great guests. Let me first introduce our guest moderator. That's Richie Romaniello. That's pronounced Ro-Man-E-L-O, just so you know. Richie's a recording engineer for Penguin Random House Audio. He's a guitar owner, and he's the vocalist and the guitarist and frontman for the original famous Rays, a 7-piece New York City-based blues band. And Richie's going to be our moderator today, as I said, which is great. We're looking forward to that. And Richie, hello, you there? Just checking.
I'm here, and thank you for inviting me to do this.
Our pleasure.
It's exciting to be among you folks.
Our our pleasure. On
it's
behalf
really
of
a
the New
thrill.
York section, we thank you kindly.
No
Go ahead. I
problem.
didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. But my first, I'd like to introduce Steve Remote, whose name I probably think.
I'm going to take this opportunity to exit,
Okay.
but you guys have a great panel. I'll be watching with everybody. Thank you so much.
All righty. So, for all you folks who are not familiar with Steve Remote, though I do believe that's not his real name, it's probably Arnold Remote or something like that. He's a recording and mixing engineer, music producer, video director, recording studio designer, and studio owner from Queens, New York. He's the founder and chief engineer of Orasonic Limited, a mobile and location production company based here in New York City. And I'd love to welcome you aboard. And I'd like to hear a lot about your 5 components to a successful location recording because every once in a while I get to do them. And maybe I'll learn something, and maybe our guests will learn something.
No doubt. How you doing, Richie?
Real
Um,
good.
First of all, that actually is my real name. I had to change. It used to be Joe Remote. I should
See,
be Remote, but you were close.
I,
You were close.
I knew that there was something different.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, it is what it is. I'm a distant type of guy.
God, that's nuts. That's cool, man. But I think people would be very interested to know about the 5 components and how you captured the Newport Folk Festival and Jazz
Sure,
Festivals
sure,
from
sure.
2008 to 2019. And
Yeah. Well, I guess let's start with the 5 components to a successful location recording or production is really kind of obvious for us remote guys, location audio guys. But so basically, the concept is one pre-production. To talk to the band management, band producer if applicable. Sometimes you might have a connection with the band. You're talking with them or one of the musicians in the band. You get in touch with the venue people, other production folks. Believe it or not, it's nice to introduce to everybody in all the different departments because you never know when you may
sure,
need their hand to
yeah,
move some cables, get something happening. Find out what everybody's needs are in advance. That's an interesting concept. Like imagine treating that pre-production call as looking at yourself as a guest to that situation rather than, hey, I want this, I want that. And the idea would be to find out what everybody wants. So while that's happening, you survey the location. You can do it, of course, in person if there's a budget to fly you or get you out there. and or on the phone. And nowadays, we'd have some type of video chat or somebody sitting there with FaceTime or some other app, Skype or whatever, to walk around in the room. I was working on a similar project a couple of months ago, and we were not able to get to there because 4 hours away and it wasn't a budget. So one of the production managers ran over there, and she, sat around with her iPhone and moved pictures around and took videos, and it was a really positive happening way to do it, especially nowadays with the advent of the internet and all this live video chat capabilities. So that's the first component. The second one is basically getting to the gig, park, power, electronic setup, leveling out the vehicle, installing your permits, running your feeder cable and power sources, whether it's shore power or generator power, running your snake lines and video and comms and all the feeds to each destination. And then the onstage setup, splitters, snakes, mics, DIs, all that stuff, all the necessary things you may need to do. Even if it's not a video production, we normally have a closed circuit camera set up so we can see what's going on.
Sure.
Many times we're also recording the camera. So in the event we need to do a mix, we can see exactly what's going on while we're mixing. This is something that I'll bring up later when we're talking about mixing the stuff.
So like a full stage, so you can see everything that's going on.
Well, yeah, and we have the capability of having up to 4 cameras, all pan and tilt control, so we can set up all sorts of stuff. So the idea really is, of course, the full shot. A lot of times venues already have that set up, like Carnegie Hall and Radio City Music Hall, so you can get, it's nice to get that feed, so you got the wide shot, but that's pretty far away. So it's nice to have the zoom capability and panning capability, because a lot of times, a mic cable or a microphone stand can move or change, and you want to be able to capture everything properly at the origination and not have to be trying to figure out how to make something sound right when something changes. Sure. So having your own zoom and panning capabilities is key. In the old days, when I used to mix front of house, I used to wear a monocular on a lanyard. So at 125 feet away, I just grab my monocular and I'm like, can scour the stage and make sure everything's in place before the show goes on.
You didn't have an eye patch though, right?
No, you didn't. I didn't need to. And I might mess up and actually put the monocular in front of the iPad. And it wouldn't, that wouldn't have helped at all.
I guess, yeah.
But the idea is place and adjust the room mics or or audience mics, interface with all the applicable factions like the film, video, radio production, whoever else is involved with your production. So that's our second portion. And then, the third one is your sound check and rehearsal, everything that you would expect. The interesting thing about when I do sound checks, I always find it, first of all, I always like to follow the front of house. If it's a live show, I always like to follow their routine, because usually because we're in a controlled environment, we can get things dialed in a lot quicker than when you're out in the room or out in the festival space, because of the fact that you're not dealing with all these other issues and possibilities. So what I like to do actually is I get best results. I check all my stuff when I have the band playing full on. Believe it or not, I'd rather be checking my kick, snare, toms, overheads, all the instruments while they're playing, because not only am I adjusting for balance and listening to the timbre of the sound, I'm also listening for good and bad leakage. And
Exactly. And some people, leakage is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just knowing
it's
how
the
to,
glue. It's the
right?
glue.
Absolutely. It's
You
what
know,
makes it sound live.
especially when it comes to miking a live performance. And I got to tell you, we did a recording a couple of months, last year,
Yeah, right.
back, and moving. Sometimes I was listening to the drums, had the band playing, and I'm going, man, I'm hearing all this like stage noise. What in the world's going on? I mean, I know how I set up my mics. I know what I should be expecting. And I'm going like, why in the world is this sounding like that is? So I go out onto the stage and I notice that the monitor wedge is pointing into her drum kit, like smack on into the tom mics. So I went to the drummer and I said, hey, do you mind if I move this monitor a little bit? Man, I don't think I moved it more than 2 or 3 inches. Just shifted it, went back into my control room, listened to it, go, oh my God, drums sound like they're in an isolation booth.
Right.
So think about that 5 minutes it took me to ask her if it was cool to do that, and then getting that permission, making that assessment visually, right? Because I wasn't checking sound, just visually moving it, that transducer exactly where I wanted it to go. And next thing you know, all of a sudden, oh wow, voila. Now, if I didn't do that and said, oh, that concept that so many people do nowadays, well, even in the old days, fix it in the mix. My God, that is the worst concept. I've done projects where, the drums weren't recorded right, and you're spending 10 hours trying to fix drums for one song, where it took me 5 minutes to get it perfect. So, think about that concept, And then the fourth component to a successful production is showtime, recording the show, getting it down right, never dropping your attention to what exactly is going on. So many times, um, little things can change, even to the point of like somebody banging into a mic, and now all of a sudden the mic is pointing to backstage, and you're hearing all sorts of crazy insanity, and you're trying to figure out what is going on. This is key, especially for a live show, a live production, going live broadcast. You really don't have that second chance, and there's nothing you can do about fixing it.
Right. Absolutely.
So that show time is incredibly important. And then the final thing to round it up is strike the set and retreat. Don't and the big thing about that, especially if you're traveling or you're 1,000 miles away, 2,000 miles away, is don't forget anything. Leaving something behind, and you're heading to the next city. Man, you'd be lucky if you could ever retrieve what what you lost.
Right.
You call back to the venue and say, hey man, I left my adapter for the splitter. And it's like, it's insane to even think about what your issues are with some mission critical device that you now don't have, and you're in your next city and you're going.
Do you keep like an inventory of, you've taken out, you're going to a specific gig and you've brought these microphones, this many cable, or is it just your truck is loaded and it's got much more than what you really need, but it's got all?
No, actually, I'm one of those guys. I have 3 of everything. So you have the thing you need, then you have the backup to the thing, and then you have a backup to the backup. I'm not kidding. I literally have multiples of things. So all our new recording rigs, actually, the old days was, dual redundancy, having 2 recorders happening. Nowadays, we have 3 recorders happening. Wow. So we have the, like I said, the recorder, the backup to the recorder, and then the backup to the backup. Because if one fails, you still need another backup, because it doesn't, so, it's not going to stop from something else messing up. Now, in and this is all part of the pre-production, all that stuff, all that intelligence I gathered during pre-production, I then create what I call a location production file, or what I call for short location file, which basically has all the possible information that you would ever want to know. So not only do you have things to do lists, but you have everybody's contact information, pretty much, your own writer with exactly what you need to do. And I have a pretty much every gig I ever did in a, about, I guess, 80% of every gig I ever did from the time I started when I was 18 to current, in these hard copy form. And then interns would, as one of their jobs, they would create, add it to the database, the key elements to it, so you can look things up. And then when you look in the database, you not only know, okay, this is where that hard copy is, but here's where the masters are. They went back to the client, or one set one to the client, one is in our library. Which library? We have 3 of them. So that kind of thing. Matter of fact, I'm gonna pull one of them off my big ass shelf here. So you're probably not gonna, let me turn this sucker off, which is ridiculous anyway. So look at this thing. This is like,
Gotcha.
1 year's projects, and
now is it all handwritten?
Well, in the old days it was all handwritten.
Yeah.
Now it's all
you got digital forms.
Yeah. So now it's all PDFs and stuff.
Right.
But that's the concept, man. To have as much information with you. And interestingly enough, whether it's a big budget or a small budget, we always check all our gear a lot of times, especially if we're traveling far away or it's a top tier situation. But again, even on the small projects, we'll set up the rig and make sure everything is everything. Because if we're checking everything out and all our cables are there, and now we pack that stuff after everything was tested properly, there's no way you're going to forget anything. Well, there are ways you can forget things, I guess. But, the idea is you're limiting that possibility, so that's key for me. I've been kind of, you kind of learn, sometimes you get baptized in flames, man. You learn from your mistakes. And it's
Sure.
like that whole concept of having 3 of everything had to do with leaving something behind, or something breaks, or somebody steals something, or now what do we do, So that's that story when it comes to the.
And I would assume that you came up with the 5 principles over a period of time through trial and error. I would assume you found.
Well, I mean, it's really the standard stuff for any pro, any engineer that does this for a living. They understand that dynamic, that you need to have that pre-production and getting in contact with all the people. You need to know that you have to park, make sure parking is available and that the venue knows you're showing up. There are times, I gotta tell you, man, there have been times that you go to show up to a gig and the venue goes, I don't have you scheduled in here. I have no parking for you. Or you show up and you got your mics and you're about to start setting up, and they got the drummers like, or whoever, hey man, management didn't tell us you're recording us. It's like, well, I'm here. Well, you're not going to be allowed. And then now at the 11th hour, you got to contact your client. The client got to contact the management. This can happen. More. This has happened more times than not. Not a lot, but enough to make it something that you need to address. At least mention it in that pre-production meeting and various connections that you're doing, that management tells the band, or you tell the band, or venue needs to know, and have that proof. And what's great about the pro places is they're asking you for that information. Hey man, you got your parking permit? Hey, do you got your liability insurance, all this stuff is stuff that, needs to be addressed, needs to be taken care of up front before you even show up. And so these days, I'm working with clients that are a third my age, so
Oh, sure.
they have no clue what's happening. Now, some cats do, so, some people are pretty remarkable at what they do, and so that's a positive, but they still don't know everything because they're haven't done enough gigs to know what they're
Oh,
doing.
sure.
So visually or orally, they got their act together. They know exactly what they're trying to go for. That's wonderful. But how about all that other stuff that will jam us up? Like, oh, yeah, we got the permit for the truck, but we don't have the permit for the generator trailer or whatever, or no permits whatsoever. It's like, you ask, hey, can I get a permit to put in the window? Oh, we don't have any. What? We're what? You don't what? You know? And some amazing videos have come from these projects. So, it's interesting how that can happen, so
I'm sure. But at this point, we want to bring in Billy Glassner, who is a brand builder with over 25 years of sales and marketing management in footwear, apparel, sporting goods spaces. Since 2008, he's also been the director of partnerships and archivist for the Newport Festival Foundation and producer of the annual Newport Folk and Jazz Festivals. And after 12 years of managing these two parallel careers, Billy is merging them into one, and he has recently formed his own consulting agency, Big Happy Dinosaur, and it's dedicating his energies to the projects within the music and media spaces, including the Newport Folk Foundation and the festivals that occur in Newport, Rhode Island. So, welcome aboard, Bill. It's excellent to see you for a second time. Or actually, maybe it's now our third time. Um, and so, in terms of the digitization of the archive, how did you start from the beginning and work your way to the most current, or backwards to the older stuff, or pick and choose? I'm sure there's a lot of things that went into what was a priority in that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, thanks so much for having me here. It's really a pleasure, and I'm excited to share with you guys some insights into how we did this crazy thing. As far as how we approached the archives with Newport, it was really, Steve just mentioned baptism by fire or flames. That was kind of the archive, how we approach the archives, because we honestly really had never put all that much effort into consolidating the Newport archives, because we have our annual celebrations of Newport Folk Festival and Newport Jazz Festival, and the rest of the year is just working towards those events. We are a year-round organization, and we are committed. Our nonprofit is committed to furthering music education to those who can't afford it, and so everything we do really ties to that. But back in, I'm gonna say it was March or April, we really knew that we were not going to be able to hold the festivals this year, and but we also knew that we really wanted to deliver something for the fans, and make sure that on those weekends, the last weekend of July for folk and the first weekend of August for jazz, that we had something to give our fans for the weekend, and we realized that was really going to take the shape of sharing some of their favorite sets back with them over terrestrial radio and Sirius XM, and we did some films. So, I had been doing sponsorships and partnerships for the festivals for many years, but I raised my hand. I said, "Hey, listen, I know we've got a ton of stuff, but nobody's organized it." And I knew that literally there were Rubbermaid tubs filled with hard drives in our office that had not been cataloged. That really was a gold mine. So I raised my hand and I said, "Let me take this on, and I'll at least give everybody an understanding of what we have to work with. So I basically worked probably 16 hours a day just to figure out what was on all these hard drives. And basically our content comes from it's a few different places. The first place is a lot of our historical stuff back from the 50s and 60s. A lot of it's been released, whether it's on Vanguard, Verve, Columbia, you know, Voice of America had been recording the festivals back in the day to share with troops overseas. A lot of that stuff is sitting at the Library of Congress. You know, Alan Lomax, who was on our board and one of the original forces behind the festival. He kept incredible notes. He recorded everything. All of his stuff is really beautifully organized at the Library of Congress. So we know a lot of that stuff is out there, and there are a couple of other places where it sits. Some of it's more well known than others, but then there's a whole other section, a wealth of material that has been recorded, mixed, broadcast through NPR, and Steve Remote is responsible for most of that. So we knew that a lot of that stuff, even if it had not everything had been broadcast, but we knew that even a section of it or a large portion of it had never been broadcast, even though it was mixed. We knew we wanted to pull from that because that's some great material. And then there's a whole library of material, whether it's on multi-tracks or different mixes that had never been aired, that really was just sitting there, and there's some beautiful, beautiful stuff. And so we knew we had a lot to work with, but really just figuring out what was at our disposal was the first task, and that was the big undertaking at first.
So was all your source material just digital, or did you have to go back and use some of the analog masters?
It really was. It's all been digitized for the most part. There are tapes out there, but we just in the interest of time, and the resources that we had, we knew we had to focus on what was readily available to us, and that was digital for sure.
Well, certainly easier to manipulate, that's for sure.
Yeah, easier to share a whole.
And
But
are they high res archives?
they are indeed. Yeah, they're full uncompressed, wave files and all that stuff. But this what the beautiful thing that happened here was we realized that our fans just were so appreciative of it, and it was our first time doing anything like this. But we realized this is something that should become part of our normal cadence and give back to the fans. So this absolutely will not be the last time that we do something like this, and very well could become part of a year-round sharing platform that we've yet to determine, but we're working on it.
Well, I've heard some of bits and pieces, and it's terrific, and I love live recordings, period, because there's a magic that even with the problems, the hum and the bumps and the thumps and the missed lines, sometimes there's magic there that just never happens uh, quite the same in a studio setting, and I just love that sound. That's the way people need to hear music, I think. Yeah,
It's authentic for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and some beautiful stuff there. So, Steve, um, so how did you achieve melting together, something from 35, 40 years ago into something that was done last year, and make it sound, I mean, I've heard some of the transitions, and it's really quite wonderful. It doesn't seem like you took a record off the player and then dropped the needle on another one, and you got this completely different sound. It really does have quite a cohesive uh, continuity to it that is really interesting.
Well, what's interesting about a lot of the archival material that we were working with, some of it was, a lot of it was beautifully recorded, with the proper amount of audience, Many of them were in stereo, some were mono, and then there were some of the material that really had no audience, or the audience moves were not exactly at a level that you would want it to be at. So the idea was to kind of massage that sound and get it reasonable and more pleasant, right? So that was an important part of what we needed to do to shape up that sound. And then for the material that didn't have a lot of audience, instead of adding, a new high tech quality stereo audience that we could have added from all the shows that we've captured at Newport, what we did was actually add, what I'm calling festival tone, like all sorts of, you know, room and outdoor sounds that were like underneath the old original recordings. And so the idea was to create these levels and layers of noises and sounds that were just added to that ambiance. So even though there wasn't this perfect audience swell in between the tunes, it had, these other noises that were happening that were mixed under, so they weren't overwhelming, but at the same time gave you that feel that everything was happening in the same time point. So the idea that I had was, in creating this new soundscape, is that all the intros, all the old material from decades ago that spanned, many decades, and all the contemporary mixes were now part of this show, that gave you, when you listen to the show, gave you an impression that this was all happening live. Because when the intros were happening, you hear the noises in the back, and believe it or not, we had quite a, when you got 33 and a half hours of programming, we didn't use the same the same noises, the same tones and sounds that many times. If I noticed that, hey, wait a minute, I heard that chuckle, or I heard that conversation before, even though it was mixed under, I made sure that, oh, you know what, we got to move it around,
Right.
And what was great about that is that when you're listening to the show from start to end, it really gives you this impression that you're there live. And also timing of where we're adding these layers of tones, applauses, different stuff. And also we sat there, the show, after we got all the mixes and everything done, of the contemporary material, and fixed up all the sounds, we roughed in the show. And then, at the end, we went through it and sat there and moving things around a second, 2 seconds, just to get the feel that when you're coming out from one of the sets, going into the next set, or going into an intro, that, it feels like, wait a minute, this could happen. Being too quick or too short, being too quick or too long would have, made it sound like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? This is big. So,
like what we're hearing at baseball games.
Yeah, right. Well, imagine if they did more pre-production on that and actually played around and got it right. Because, well, all right, now that you brought that up, who started doing that first, way before sports did it, was Bill Maher. When they were shooting that show out of
his backyard.
Yeah, that too. What was great about it, he started using the applause, and they were not, hiding. Of course, no one was there, but it was great how they picked the right, visuals and the right applause, and it came in exactly correct, and it sounded like actually it was plausible, even though we know it's like applause from the 50s.
Right. I agree. So now when you do recordings, and probably for quite a while, you record a lot of what we call hubbub before and after the show. So
Matter of fact, on we don't do it on this festival, but that's something perhaps some production meeting prior to the next time we're allowed to do a live recording to do this. Is I do this a lot, especially with gospel recordings, that you would, get together and get either, one of the stage managers or the pastor or somebody to get the audience to do some applause and get all those sounds cut without the band going.
Right,
So
right.
now you got, all sorts of stuff from clapping to applauses to cheers to, praise and worship, all that stuff.
Yeah,
You're
right.
capturing that stuff. And at times we've also done it on, secular stuff that, you want to have all that stuff in the bag. And so, and of course, like for example, like a club that might be also providing dinner and drinks and stuff, you want that room tone, you want that sound of things. If you listen to a lot of the recordings I've done at the Blue Note, that we kept that stuff in. Instead of pulling it out, we left it in there. I want the clanking of stuff. I want
Glasses.
I
Yeah,
want
sure.
the feeling that you're sitting smack center, stage
Right.
center, and listening to that sound, and wow, this is sounding realistic. And
I agree. I mean, there's nothing like that, where you've got the best seat in the house, and you think that there's people next to you and behind you, and there's someone that you really appreciate in front of you making music. It's just amazing. I've done a bunch of recordings at the Vanguard, and it's wonderful.
yeah, and this is how we do it. And the idea, even with these projects with Newport Folk and Jazz, is that I want to give that impression that you're hearing the PA mix, and and what's helpful about that actually, maybe we should touch upon the rough mixing and the final
Yes.
mixing, but what's kind of cool, and just jump to the end of what's kind of cool about having the ability to get a feed or the video files from the iMag that was being shot, to then add that into the mix session. So when you're mixing stuff and now you got 8 or 10 mics up because it's some all-star
Right.
set going on,
Right.
now you know exactly what's going on, where they're
Soloing.
positioned.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So even though all the mixes that we did, even though it was a radio show and there was no visual, that you could put these mixes up. If this ever becomes video releases, those same mixes, they don't have to be remixed because it is exactly the way you expect it to be.
I love that when the stereo image is exactly what it looks like on stage.
Yeah, no,
if the conga player is over here on your left, that's where you're going to hear him or her.
Yeah,
I love
well,
that.
well, that's the crazy thing, and I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus, and people know if I do throw you under the bus, at least I have the emergency brake on. So if you kick the emergency brake out, hey, that's not me, But all kidding aside, I hate when you see some percussionists and they're banging away like, oh my God, what an amazing performance, and you can't hear her or his performance is ridiculous. And I know cats that mix TV shows and videos that they don't wait for the video, and a lot of times that happens. Video, they're still in edit mode and they're still in the edit bay working on the stuff. And I say, look, all right, just give me your rough cut. I still want to get a sense of what's happening.
Yeah, sure.
All right, it might not be the final, but I still want to see what's going on, so then I can get a better sense of what's happening, what I can bury, what I can have to accentuate, not leaving that not taking care of that is a big problem for me. And one thing you will notice on many of the videos that I've worked on or even produced or directed, everything you see, you will hear. And there's not one thing that is not there. And if it's not there, I may edit the video differently because we didn't capture it, and or it wasn't sounding
happened,
right.
Yeah.
Because the idea is you want it all connect. You want it all to connect.
Yeah, you want one cohesive piece. Absolutely. So, and we kind of covered a lot of how you created the sound design for the radio shows, but it must have been an arduous process, both of you, picking the material, because there's just so much to choose from, and trying to kind of represent everything that has happened over the years. Now, I would assume you try to mix as much contemporary and archival stuff as possible. I mean, because I haven't heard the entire shows, but there certainly
Yeah.
seemed to be, the Charles Brown and just amazing, and the John Prine, just incredible stuff.
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So, this really was a gift to the fans. So first and foremost, we wanted to make sure that we were, hearing, we were acknowledging their requests, because we went out to the fans. We said, hey, what sets are most important to you in your memory? And we took a poll with a bunch of fans, and so we really wanted to make sure we were doing that. The other thing we had in mind, one of the things that makes Newport really, really special, is that there are a lot of collaborations that you won't see anywhere else.
Right.
And a lot of them some of them are planned, but even those are usually very, very last minute, as in like the day before or the day of. And then there are a lot of spontaneous collaborations that happen just because we work hard to create an atmosphere for that, where artists are really comfortable, and it's very congenial, and it's very community family oriented. So we wanted to make sure that we were representing that, and in the sets that we made as part of the weekend. We also really wanted to make sure that we were throwing in some fun surprises for the fans. There's a storied history, whether we're talking about Bob Dylan or Joni Mitchell, or Earl Scruggs or Bill Monroe. We really wanted to make sure, or Lightning Hopkins or John Lee Hooker. We really wanted to make sure that we were representing the history and the breadth of the festival musically. So that was the other big piece of it. And then we have a very small team, and we all have different tastes and opinions, but we all really thrive off of each other's energy. And we just basically sat down and started a spreadsheet of, hey, what would your dream weekend look like? And then we just talked about it, and we hashed it out. And we're all really working from the same list of sets that we had at our disposal, but so that way we weren't like asking for stuff that just.
As we all know, when it's live, you only get one chance.
Yeah. So that's kind of how we went about it. And then we listened back to stuff, and Steve was great. We're like, hey, we want these 8 sets. Can you do rough mixes? Because there were only multi-tracks, so we couldn't listen to them. I mean, we all remember the Beck set being amazing, but we've never really listened back to it. And so we asked Steve to do roughs of it so we could all listen to it. We're like, yeah, that was amazing.
So you do, Steve, like you do like a static basic mix, and then you choose the performances that you like from that particular set.
Actually,
and then fine tune them, or?
Well, no, actually, it didn't make sense to do that, because, see, this is the thing. We were still in flux. So back in May, I think it was 3 or 4 days, I spent the time doing the rough mixes of all the material that I asked to do. So what we always try to do is get a stereo mix from front of house. So with the stereo mix from front of house and the audience mics, I create these rough mixes that can be really quick, because the idea was trying to stay on budget,
sure.
not knowing what we're going to be anticipating. So some of the stuff that I didn't capture, there were some stuff that wasn't captured by me. They didn't have the front of house mix. They didn't have audience stuff. So for that stuff, I had to do a quick rough mix.
Right.
But that being said, more only panning and levels and a little bit of EQ if it was just egregious sounding low end or something like that.
Sure.
But was what I did, because I felt that when I'm going to do the final mix, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And if I'm going to set it up, if I'm going to set it up the way I will normally set up for the rough mixes, and not know for sure that this is a keeper or not, wouldn't be doing the foundation any positive on the economic side of things. So what I did for most of the stuff, like all the captures that my crew and I did, we have front of house mix. So we just got those mixes, sent them out. They approved what they needed to approve, and then I had my laundry list of music to start mixing on. Sometimes we had to get mixes that came from Josh Rogerson, who is the director of engineering and main guy at NPR, and a lot of times we had to get his sound devices material, or a show that was broadcast live but didn't have a multi-track, because between 2008 and 2014 I was only multi-tracking the main stage. And actually I started multi-tracking the main stage because I was thinking of the future. Like we weren't, it wasn't paramount that I had to do that, but I said, one day, who knows, perhaps some back end deals can be made and ways to get this material out there and have a better mix. We were lucky.
And it's so easy to do now at this point in time. It's not like you had analog recorders there and you're limited to this amount of tracks. You've got virtually unlimited tracks to a certain degree, and it's just as easy to make the multi-track.
Right, but the bottom line is that came out of my pocket, right? So
sure.
So the idea was that I was just thinking of the future and thinking about what exactly was happening. And to get back on track of what I was saying, so from 2008, 2014, I only had what was allowed for us to record or broadcast of the main stage. So if they picked shows that came from the quad or the harbor stage, we had to go back to the stuff that Josh did on his setup, which was primarily front of house mix, his audience mics, and he had that available, so that's what we did with that. But I got to say, the key was having my team of 5 associate engineers that really helped me make this happen. If I didn't have my crew of 5, it would have taken forever. I mean, it already, once we really started getting in, we started working on the final music mixes and roughing in the show back in like June 9th. Like, so we started in June 9th, and the show in 2 months, we were putting in 80 plus hours a week with like, I think we took 3 days off, 4th of July and the 5th of July. And I think the 31st was the only days we had off, and we were putting in like literally 80 plus hours a week. And so, the key, to all this is, referencing, deliverables and handling all the audio assets. My associates basically, had these various duties. Like Ken McGee was my recorded media wrangler. He also helped me prep some of my music mixes for Pro Tools. And it basically got things where I need him to be on the mixes. And Steve Kolakowski was instrumental in all the 2017 and 2018 on-site mixes we did. I don't know if anybody knows, but in 2017 and 18, when we were asked to come back, we started now capturing all the stages. So we were capturing all the stages with my portable rigs, and then basically doing a sneaker net over to the Tiny Big Mobile, which was set up as a mix suite. So we mixed 14 out of the 15 bands that were airing on 2017 right out of that truck. And so that was kind of amazing that was happening. So, and then besides that, he also came in the June and July months to help me with some of the other music mixes that we were putting together. And then when basically that second week of June, John Duver came in, and he's like the secret sauce. He helped me finish the rest of the mixes, and did finally the final show Pro Tools engineer, and we banged out all this like magical stuff. And while that was happening, while we were doing all the music mixing and getting that all dialed in, Robert Anderson out of his studio was putting together all the roughing in of all the actual show. So he created the various Pro Tools sessions that were like each day was a Pro Tools session. So he roughed it in,
Right.
and it was kind of a little rough because things were constantly changing. So we'd have our show schedule of what it was. So he'd rough that in, and then a week later or many days later, we're starting to work on it, and things change. So it was like, if we weren't keeping an eye on our cloud source of information of what was happening and what was current for that day, there kind of a couple of clams could have went in there, like the wrong set, or too many songs, or not enough songs. So it was learning, a big learning experience, and it was great because we came up with a positive solution on how to pull it off and how to make it happen. And we're kind of pretty excited about that.
I'm being asked for photos, so if you can show some stuff, and we can get back to Billy and both of you guys actually, but I'll start back with Billy. But how in the world did you get involved in it in the first place in Newport? Because I think it's pretty fascinating what you were telling me the other day, and I'm sure our viewers would love to hear. I mean, this has been a relatively long relationship with them, and from what I can tell, it's going unless something goes awry, it's gonna till death do you part.
Stuff goes awry. Trust me, stuff goes awry. I grew up around music. I always played in bands, and after college, I managed bands and had my own company. And before I got distracted by the footwear and apparel business, and I sort of had moved around the country quite a bit. And when I moved back to Rhode Island in 2008, I really had missed being involved in music. And I had done some. I had known Jay Sweet from some other projects that we had worked on while I was at Timberland and Burton, and I knew that Jay had just been hired to book Newport, so I gave Jay a shout and said, "Hey, I'm in Newport. I'm in Rhode Island, and I'd love to help you out and even volunteer or whatever." He's like, "No, I need your help. I want you to run partnerships and sponsorships with me." So that was in the fall of '08, and I've been part of the team since then. So,
and is that similar to what you had been doing prior, or did you kind of have to reinvent yourself? And
no, I mean, as a brand manager, and I was always in marketing and sales, working for everybody from Levi Strauss and Company in San Francisco, and Burton Snowboards up in Vermont, and Timberland in New Hampshire, and Adidas, Reebok. So I'd been in the world, and I had a bit of a network within that space, marketing, and when I was at Levi's and really all my companies, I'd always sort of been involved in some of the music partnerships. So it really was a very natural extension for me, and I sort of did it on the side. I kind of was moonlighting for a while. It wasn't until very recently that I decided that I wanted to pursue it full time, and create my own agency, and really Newport is my sort of cornerstone client in my agency. But I'll be picking up new clients on sponsorships, licensing, and archival work as well, which can often be interrelated. So I'm excited. It's fun.
That's great. Well, and that, that probably spills over, and that's, when you get to do something that you love, um, it certainly allows you to really put yourself into it.
Oh, for sure.
Clearly, you're not getting reimbursed monetarily for truly the amount of hours that both of you guys
Yeah.
love something. For you, audio is your hobby as well as your vocation.
Just life.
Yeah, but you might as well do something cool.
Yeah.
And we don't know how long we'll be here, so take
That's
advantage.
right.
Can you guys see these pictures?
Yeah, they look great, Steve.
So this rig is our this was the rig for the main stage, the Fort stage, which is two 64 channel Tascam DA 6400s plus a Mac Mini running Pro Tools. But at this time we were running a Reaper on this gig with that situation. And then this was our what we call affectionately Big Bertha, which is a 64 all-in-one case. Has a sound devices, a Pix 270i, and a Pro Tools rig. And this over here is a active DA that was basically sending the front of house mix and all our music audience mics to the recorders and back to Control Center, and also to Josh Rogeson's recorder up on top of the rig. Each stage had the same setup, meaning audience mics and stereo front of house mix were going to our recorders, Josh's sound devices, and back to the main Control Center to handle the tune-in live broadcast that was happening. And this is the Harbor stage where we were running. We never need more than 48 channels there, including the audience mics. So that was there. And so this is probably, this, as you can see, the same setup, mics and front of house mix and our comm and headphone amp all in this one little rigaroony there. And this is now our Control Center. And this section here that you see was the first year where Ken was handling all the media, wrangling all that stuff. And the first year we were doing it with laptops. Things kind of took forever, but we really upped the game on the second year, bringing in a really blown out Hackintosh running many machines very quick. And as you can see, here's our stage front of house. Our Fort stage setup with the media, and this here is another angle of, as you can see, the crew. There's Kaz, Ken, and the guys from TuneIn. This area here was TuneIn's world. This is the media wrangling. This is Kaz on the Fort stage. And then this was my world, which was basically taking all the feeds, video and audio from every stage, and then distributing it to the TuneIn folks as needed. And I had a backup rig running over here. So if this stuff failed, we could have easily went to that. And here's another wide shot of the 2017 setup. And here's that rig, so it's more the XTA active DAs, splitters. And so what's cool about it is, inputs are coming in here. You got 20, so each stage was represented here, Fort, Quad, and Harbor, and the front house mix and the audience mixes now can be distributed to 4 places. So it went to TuneIn, it went to my X32 rack, it went to Josh's sound device machine, and it also went to our recording setup. And here we were parked right next to the Video Village, event producers set up in Casemate. And that's how we were able to be so close communicating with them if they needed something. Right. Sometimes they lost audio or something happened and we were able to take care of them. This is a great aerial shot of the festival. And this must be like, I think 2008 or whatever, because you can see where my cursor is. That's the tiny, that's the breadmobile setup. And that's where we parked it that first year we were there. So it's kind of cool seeing the nose of that vehicle right there. It's kind of funny. But this is and here's another closer shot of that. But this is 2013. We were still parking roughly in the same situation. And here's a shot of what the stage, how far we were from the stage. And, when we first show up, we park right, try to stay on the pavement. And when we get there in the morning, the setup day, we sit there and wait for the handlers to tell us where to go. In the old days, this was the patch bay and all the gazintas and gazautas for the breadmobile. And built in here, we had a digital setup, a CDR recorder that could do like, so if we wanted to get samples of what was going on and not want to repatch or anything, right out of our studio comm dub output would go right to this recorder. So if we wanted to get, the festival tone or snare hits or whatever we wanted, I just, solo up those channels, throw it in record, and I had it. So that was a very awesome way to deal with it without having to repatch or even bother what other setups we may have or mixes that are going out. It could be happening instantaneously. It was kind of a cool way to do it. And this is, obviously getting there. I'm not breaking a sweat whatsoever, watching my guys work, but
supervising is difficult.
Yeah, a lot of pointing going on.
It's just amazing. I mean, this is just so the equivalent of what I do would be bring a shopping bag, some Dixie cups and some string. And that's what my remote is like compared to this. This is amazing.
It's all relative, man. It's all relative. Today's strings is tomorrow's, has been, stuff. So, this is a more current, this is 2019. We got a lot more clever with it, how we spreaded it out and upgraded the chair,
Well, that's important.
Graham Tobias brought his own chair, man. He ain't fooling around. He wasn't into the folding chair of the other years. And of course, the flamingo is key.
Absolutely. No lava lamps, though, huh?
Well, lava lamps were in the breadmobile, and
okay.
I think I told you guys that story. Right.
So
each lava lamp had a they were called. One was Aura, one was Sonic.
And they were supposed to be in the right place.
And here's the rig. So this is I believe 2018, where you can see this massive setup here for the media wrangling, and we're going to run 8 hard drives. In this picture there is, I think, 7 there or something like that. 7
it looks like,
so.
Yeah.
And so you can see it was a wonderful way to do that. So on the spot, we could be making multiple copies and backups to present to our client and the material that comes back with us. The idea at the time was to have the archives in 3 different cities, and now it's Billy can confirm this. We also have it up on the cloud too. So not the multi-tracks, but at least the mixes and stuff. So the idea is have it everywhere. So if something fails, we have a place. If
Right.
house goes on fire, God forbid, yet we have the material somewhere else. So.
Sure.
So in my possession, I have all my hard drives in 3 different locations. So all in New York, but it's kind of cool to have all these possibilities available, to us.
Now, someone has texted me and said, "Explain the Five Guys setup." Is there something specific about the Five Guys setup that
Who said that?
Mr. Shamir?
The 5 Guys setup.
Maybe
Well,
maybe your crew.
Like burgers?
yeah, okay, now I get it. No, because I was gonna say, man, I'm thinking of like a double.
I'm going to chime in I'm going to chime in real quick as the voice of God here.
Yeah.
I was referring to what basically I think Steve has just shown us. Some of the setups and the guys running it is one thing for sure.
Right.
Kenneth, but
Right.
really I wanted to see some photos of your setups.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, that's wonderful. Now I kind of caught on at the end there. Yeah, so basically the setups where we had a guy on each stage, and so that was that situation, and then we had a person, the Ken on this rig that is visualized now, and then I'm at the and I'm in my position, and basically that's we also had a runner, that would sit there and be a relief guy for all our different setups, and that's kind of like how we had it set up. We had the three stages, and Ken and myself and the 6th person, and then we had a couple of runners that would take care of whatever we needed to take care of, and so that's how we kind of handle that stuff.
So you're for 2021 at this point in time, I would imagine there's nothing. Is there anything planned at this point, Bill? Is that, or am I going into territory that
hope for the best, and plan for the worst. We just don't know. So we're just watching this very closely. But we'll have news fairly soon about how we're going to approach it. But
I guess you have to see really what's going to happen in the fall with the.
Yeah, it's just this is unprecedented. Nobody has the roadmap. Nobody knows what's going on.
No, we're making it up as we go along. Clearly.
Yeah, we just need to make sure that our fans are kept safe and comfortable, and until we can guarantee that, it's going to be hard to.
And artists, I mean, it's still, it's a dangerous situation.
For sure.
But
here's my desk. So this is what was happening. I had a visual of each stage. The fort stage and the quad stage was a line cut for the IMAG, and then the harbor stage was just a shot of the stage, just so I could see what's going on. And we had individual communication available from each stage. And then this little monitor speaker here, I'd be able to solo any one of the channels coming from all the stages, so I can listen to front of house mix, my audience mix, all that kind of stuff. And so this was kind of like where my world was. And here's my book with all my notes and that kind of stuff. It was it's like little by little you make it work, and it's every year is an improvement, from
sure.
when I think about how we were handling it in 2008 to how it was handled in 2019. It's a wonderful growth process.
Well, the technology also, I mean, everything has gotten smaller, and I remember lugging 16-track machines down the back steps of Sweet Basil for recording. You don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, I worked on a Grammy-winning record out of Sweet Basil for Gil Evans Bud and Bird, Monday Night.
That's who I worked with. There's two double live albums, live from Sweet Basil, and that was actually the second remote I ever worked on.
Yeah,
But it was very different than what you had. It was, a
yeah,
handful
and that
of
was all analog 2-inch recording. So
we were even using 1-inch 16s. We were using the Tascam 1-inch 16s because Malcolm and I couldn't carry the damn an MM1200 down the steps.
I did a comedy record with Malcolm Addy in my first truck. So that first truck was commissioned on 1977 and decommissioned in 1984, and we had two 1-inch 8-track machines for that gig, and one was my Scully 8-track that I put in the truck, and then the other one was a Burnell that we ran, so we have a backup of Burnell 1-inch, which was and then instead of using the gear that I had, he had his two Sony MX 20 mixers, and that's how we captured it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So there's a question from Kenneth McGee saying he'd like to know what Billy uses in terms of cloud storage.
Yeah. So at this point, we are just landing on what we want for long-term cloud storage. For this project, we used Google Drive. We have a pro account with Google Drive, and it was a really good way for us to be able to share files with each other and store stuff. And we currently use Google Drive. It seems to work really, really well, and we can, most importantly, really gate permissions and who can view stuff versus edit stuff, and then we can manage those permissions pretty carefully. So right now Google Drive is the solution, at least it was for this project. Going forward, we may migrate to a dual solution from using Google Drive as well as using a NAS system that we as a team can access.
But migrating files, I mean, it's so much easier.
Google takes a long time. It's very slow, but we're researching a lot of different cloud solutions, and they're either too expensive for our nonprofit budget, or they're just not much better than what we're able to accomplish with Google. So that's there's really nothing fancy there, but it works, gets the job done.
That's what's important, and obviously there's built-in redundancies there, and you have, you can just grab whatever you need from there, right?
Yeah, it's really, because we're talking 30, 40, 50 terabytes worth of material. We don't have everything on the cloud yet, just the stuff that we're actually working on. But right now, that's been the way that we've been sharing files across members of the team. But it does take a long time, especially when we're putting video files up with it. Like when Steve would be mixing a multi-track, often we would also put in with that into that folder the iMag video capture, and those can be 60, 70 gigs worth of the pretty big files. Yeah, so that would take, we'd do that overnight, and so it's not a quick process.
Oh no, for sure.
But certainly, if there are solutions out there that are affordable and more effective, I'd love to hear about them, because I've been researching, and
Well, the NAS drive seems like a really wonderful solution for our projects and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I've been experimenting with that personally, and it seems to work really, really well. So we will be migrating to a NAS RAID system in the near future.
Frame IO seems to be a really awesome setup that many of the major networks are using.
Cool. So I'm just wondering if there are any other questions from the folks in the audience. I mean, it's hard to imagine. I can't even comprehend how many people are listening right at the moment, or will be listening to this down
Well,
the line.
I'll chime in again as the voice from above with no video. We've had a nice turnout, and what we've found at these events, they get watched on demand tremendously a couple of days afterwards and even weeks afterwards, because we have a view counter and it keeps going up and up and up. So we're speaking for the audience today and for in the future. So people might be able to add a comment or two in the future with a question, and if they tag us, we'll get it over to Steve or Billy, and I'm sure will be happy to respond. So I don't think we have any other questions right now. We're going to just double check real quick.
Now I see the.
Maybe people
Hey,
know
Richie,
that.
there's my Sonic.
I see it. And the dinosaurs, I'm sure they affect the timbre of the Genelecs. This is not unlike when NS10s first came out, and recording engineer and producer did the in-depth article on which toilet paper sounded best in front of the tweeters on NS7.
Well, you know, funny thing about the toilet paper, I realized that NS10s work great with a Yamaha P2200 power amp because it had a slew rate of about a week. So
I have one. I have one of those.
Use it for your NS10s, man. You don't need any paper towels. I mean, any tissue paper.
That is actually the amp that Unique Recording had paired with the NS10Ms in Studio A.
It's remarkable how amazing it sounded.
I will just chime in that one of our officers, Jim Julian, is putting in a vote for Frame IO as a good clown solution.
Yep, that's what I was saying. That's some serious stuff.
And that our good friend Joe Berger has enjoyed the show too.
Great,
That's great.
Okay, well, I don't think, unless you guys have anything else you'd like to add, people should definitely visit the Gear Sluts thread that we've listed, that Steve has spent a lot of time on. A lot of people are big fans of the Steve Remote world at Gear Sluts. So go check that out if you've never have. If you've never checked out Gear Sluts in general, check it out. It's a great resource. Guys, please interject anything else before we go, but I think we're going to close up in a minute.
I'm going to add some links to the images that I was showing. I have them set up on Facebook. They're public, so you should be able to see them if you have a Facebook account. But it'll be, gigs with the Elroy and the Tiny Big Mobile and the Breadmobile and my portable gear and all that stuff. So you'll be able to find that stuff in the comment page and make a comments page. And maybe I'll also add some directing to links and stuff if it hasn't been done yet to some of the videos and stuff from Newport.
Okay, well, thanks all for joining us. Great job today. Definitely appreciate everybody's time, and I think it was an informative and fun panel. For those people that are aware of Newport, there was a lot of details that they gained from this, and for those people that aren't aware, you should definitely check them out. There's some great YouTube clips, and definitely there'll be future events, whether they be online or in real life. Newport ain't going anywhere.
No.
Just like this music industry is not going anywhere. Please, everybody, tune in and keep an eye on our page, like I said earlier, for any events coming up. We're probably going to have a little happy hour before AES starts. We've got some cool stuff coming up with Dolby and some other interesting events we're working on putting together for you, the AES officers, and in general. Richie, great job. Thanks so much for helping out as our guest moderator.
Thank you.
Remoteness, as always. Great info. Thanks. Billy, pleasure meeting you. Thanks for sharing with us. And everybody have a great day. See. So bye-bye to Facebook land.
Bye-bye now.